Okay, today we want to start taking a look at how to modify tables that already exist. Probably the most important part of this discussion will be the deleting rows, updating existing data. You've already seen that, a little bit of it, in Programming Logic Intermediate, those of you that are in that class, because we wrote a query, though we had a lot of help, wrote a query that deletes a row from the table, from the database, from the table. We wrote another query that updates the data in a database. That query, as it turns out, is a whole lot longer than it needs to be, or that it, if we were doing the assignment, or if we were doing the update, we wouldn't need to make it quite so long. But because it's a program doing it, and we don't know which fields need to be changed, we had to change them all. As you'll see here in the lesson, when we decide to update existing data, really all we need to do is update the field that needs to be changed. You don't have to change them all. So those are the important parts. There are other things here, like how to copy an entire table, how to copy data from one table to another, how to this is interesting, how to roll back and commit transactions. This is primarily used when you're writing scripts. Scripts are just programs written in SQL. We might have a little bit of time toward the end of the semester here to talk briefly about scripts, but really all they are is do this, do this. Remember when you imported Premier products? There was a whole bunch of create table commands, a whole bunch of insert commands, who knows what else was in there. That's a script. It's a program, right? Do all of these things. And you have to debug it. If one of the commands is wrong, you got to fix it so that your script works. Well, if you're running a script, what often happens at the beginning is you have the transactions be kind of temporary. And then if your script finishes, then you can do a commit. But if your script crashes halfway through for some reason, somebody else has got the table locked, you can roll back your changes. So it's kind of like an undo in SQL. We'll learn how to do that. And then we'll also learn how to modify the structure of a table. Remember, the structure is, I got a field, it's an integer, it's the primary key, it's auto increment, or it's varchar 20. What if we screw those up? We don't want to have to start over again, because in order to rebuild that structure by starting over, we have to delete our data. What if we make a field too small? We said varchar 30 and now I need 35 or 40. Can't always start over. In the first unit, it was easy enough to start over because you were always inserting some sample data. But if you're in a real world database, you don't want to start over. You want to modify the fields. So we're going to learn how to do that. Those skills aren't used as much as deleting and the updating, but they will still come in handy to have in your arsenal. So let's start by learning how to copy a table structure. The primary reason we're doing this is so that we can make a copy of one of the tables that's in our database and play around with it without trashing the original. Another valuable skill, you're trying a new table structure. You want to make sure that your script works. You try it on a temporary table, a copy, and if it works, then you apply it to the real one. To create a new table, we simply say create table, give it a name, like an existing table. So the create table tab command is very similar, but when we do a copy like this, we're duplicating. We don't have to specify ints and primary keys and all that. It all copies over. So over here on the side, it says create a table called febtrips with the same structure as TBL trips, so using this command. So let's give that a shot. I'm going to, got to make sure first of all that I'm using employees. There we are. Create table TBL febtrips like TBL trips. What this does is duplicates the structure. There's no data transferring here. It duplicates the structure. So I'm going to press Command Return in my case, or Control Enter in your case. I got my little green circle down here that seems to have copied. And now I can do a describe TBL febtrips and see that it has basically the same structure as our That's right. The employee ID here is a 9-digit number. Kind of confused me there for a second. Right. Has the same structure as a trips table. It's got a trip date, a destination field, a duration, how many days, and how much money did we spend. Same stuff. Exact duplicate structure. But if I do a select star from TBL Feb trips, if everything goes the way I planned, there's nothing in here. So that create table like command duplicates the structure. And Val and Lyle were in the class yet, where we were sitting in systems yesterday, just kind of watching the presentation they were doing. By the way, I hope to have them do a presentation for all of you the Monday after next, kind of 4 o'clock-ish during your systems time. I've talked to Jason. He'll bring you in to show off their project and show you the ERD that doesn't fit on one screen and all that cool stuff. So I'll give you more details as we get closer and make sure the room's available. But some of those tables that they've got are huge. And you wouldn't want to have to, if you were trying to make a duplicate just to play around with, have to enter every one of those commands or save it someplace and be able to find it. This is an easy way to duplicate the structure of the table. Questions? It looks like, it does say that this doesn't copy the data, but it does look like some other versions of SQL, like the Microsoft version of SQL, do not have this command. If that's the case, I hope you saved the command list to make that table so that you can import it and run it. But MySQL does. So we can use it and take advantage of it for a homework assignment. Now, however, my table is empty. It would be nice if I could somehow get some data in there without having to retype it. So what we're going to do here is use a new version of the insert command. We're going to insert into one table. And what we're going to insert is a selected list of fields, or you can use a star, from another table. Now the field list that we select here has to match the field list that's in that table. So we have to be careful that this new table, so let's get the stuff going here. We're going to insert into TBL Feb trips. All right, so that's the table that I'm inserting into. I'm inserting new data into that table, using what looks like an embedded or a subquery, right? But in this case, because it's an insert command, it's not really a subquery. It just looks like one. Notice there's no parentheses around it. So I want to select a list of fields. Well, in this case, my trips table has the exact same list of fields as my trips table does. My Feb trips has the same list as trips. So down here, I want to say select everything from TBL trips. Forgot the from. And I could stop there, and it would copy every single record from that table. But often, if I'm just playing around, or if I want to run some queries, I've got 300 million records, and I want to run a query, or I want to run a bunch of queries on just the January data, it would be nice to not have 20 years of history in there clogging everything up. I can create a little temporary table like this and run all kinds of queries against it and probably not have to necessarily filter it as much. So there's all kinds of uses for this, including, let's put a where clause in here. I only want to include the trips where the trip date is like February. So I want February trips, that's the name of this table. So the trip year was 10, so I'm going to do 2010 dash %, dash, no, this is 2 dash %. That says, give me the February 2010 trips. I don't care what day it was on. Okay, it's rocking. Okay. So we're selecting a bunch of data. What's critical here? And when you do the homework assignments, they're going to say take some fields out because we don't need them. So in the February trips table, for instance, we could take the expenses out if we never need them. But if I did that, I couldn't say select star from TBL trips. I'd have to say select the employee ID and the trip date and the destination and the duration. And they have to be in the right order. You have no control up here when you're inserting of which fields. There might be another version of this command. I'm not sure. That's not normally what I do. What I do is make sure that the field list here matches the field list here matches the field list there. So here we go. Got a warning. Incorrect what? Data type. We'll see. According to this, there were 278 rows selected. You might remember from the previous lessons that there are 300 trips, so there are 22 trips that were in some other month. I'm guessing they were March. Now let's do the select star from trips and see what we get. Got a duplicate entry. Oh, no semicolon on that command. Shame on you. Oh, that's the wrong select star. That's why. Let's go to this one. Sorry. There we go. So once again, down here, I can see the 278 rows were returned, and they're all scrolling quickly in February. So between the two commands, the create table like and the insert into Feb trips using this query, I can create a duplicate and only pull out certain records and now have a table. I believe in the Lions Camp, Justin Walk has actually done this. He's created temporary tables using these kinds of commands where he just extracts the information he needs into a new temporary table so that when he writes the queries, there's a whole lot less data to worry about, which simplifies his where clauses. I'm sure this query could do a join. I've never tried it. But I'm sure that query could do a join, say give me this, that, and the other thing. But if you're joining from multiple tables, the Feb trips table better have the exact same field list all the way across. I've never tried that. You won't need it for the homework assignment. Miguel?
So when you're done with it, do you have to like drop the table that you?
Yeah, if you don't want to use it, when you're doing a temporary table, yeah, you drop it. And so what he wrote was a script that said create the table, fill it with the February data, process it, spit it out, and then after it was spit out, then there might have been a drop command or...
So it does stay in the database?
It stays. Yeah, this is a permanent table now. If I come over here and refresh this list, look under employees, it's got a Feb trips table now. And that will stay there until you drop it. Yep. Good question. What else? Kevin, you're scowling. What's your scowling about?
I'm getting a syntax error.
On which one? The big one here?
Yeah.
Did you break it up like I did?
Yep.
All right, the common mistake was to do the same thing I did, unfortunately. That's what I get for doing it wrong. I created a table, and then I inserted, and then I wanted to see those records, and I tried to execute this. I saw the select star from TBL trips. I tried to execute that. Well, that's in the middle of these 3 lines. That's one command. It tried to reinsert my records, and it said, no, I won't do it because I already have a record with a 1010101 key. So that was my mistake. This is the command to show me the records that are in there. I got my 278. Remember that in my notes, the square brackets here under or around the where condition designated in my notes is optional. So you can leave it out, but if you put it in, don't put the square brackets in there. They don't work. That's just to tell you in my notes that they're optional. The reason I use that notation is you'll find it a lot on the web. If you're looking at sample commands or here's what the command looks like in the documentation online, you'll often see curly brackets, square brackets around stuff. They don't go in the commands. They're part of the learn how to use it structure. And square brackets are commonly used for optional. Questions about that? You'll get plenty of practice of this because you'll make a couple copies of tables, of Henry books, and Premier products. You'll copy the structure and then copy some data into it. Okay, so now we have some data in there. We can play around with it without messing up the original trips table. So everything we do now, and the same thing is going to happen in the homework assignment, everything we do now is going to happen in the February trips table. Good news is if you delete records, modify records, and you change the wrong ones, then you do what Lyle had to do. You hope that you save this command, you drop the table, execute that command, reinsert the records, and start over again. As long as you're not messing with the original trips table, you should be fine. So one of the first commands that we've already seen in Programming Logic Intermediate is the update command. In Programming Logic Intermediate, we said update the table, set field name equals question mark, field name equals question mark, field name equals, every single field name was included. Because we didn't know which ones changed, so we saved them all, even if they hadn't changed. Here, we have a little more flexibility. So here's an example. Change the foreman of the Polonia plant to me. Okay. So we're using February trips. We're going to do an update command. Update TBL Feb trips. Then there's a set clause. Which field? Foreman equal to me. What? What's wrong with that? There's no Feb trips foreman. Here's my foreman. Here's my Feb trips table. So I guess we're, in my example, we're using a real one. So it's not TBL Feb trips, it's TBL plants. And if I mangle my plants table, it's not so bad here. But at the homework assignment, you won't be messing with the real tables, only the copies. So let's be brave. Go. X. You are using safe update mode. I love this guy. We talked about it briefly way back in the build assignment, that the MySQL workbench by default is in safe update mode, meaning it will not allow you to change a record, drop it, change it, anything, unless you specify the primary key. Now, first things first, I'm sure glad it stopped me here. Because I said, change the foreman to Volker Gall. For which plant? Karen's looking at me like, yeah, I knew that. Well, next time wave at me, will you? Before I try, well, which plant did I specify? I didn't. So which one would it have changed? All of them. Now, I know what that's like to have 3 or 4 different jobs. Okay, I know what that's like, but I don't want it. Right, so this would have been a bad thing, so I'm glad there's safe updates in there. So what we can add to this, first of all, we'll have to do a little cheating, so you don't have to follow here. I'm just going to do select everything from TBL plants. Okay, oh, I don't even need, okay, so here's Polonia, and there's Foreman, and yes, its last name was some stuff. So what I want to do here is say where the plant name equals Polonia. There, that's safer. I'm only changing one. Go. Did it do it? No. You're in safe mode. Oh, come on. In safe mode, you can't change the data or delete any row unless you specify its primary key, because there could be 3 plants named Polonia. And now I've changed 3 records. In safe mode, you can't do that. You must specify the primary key. So once again, I'm going to cheat, come up here and say, what's the primary key for Polonia? It's 2. Okay. So the plant ID equals 2. You'll see it'll let us do this one. One row affected, and it's green. Hallelujah, about time. The first one, I'm glad it stopped me. Second one, what's so bad about that? Well, the workbench is trying to protect you from trashing data here. Now I'm going to do, and you might, if you want to follow on, do a select star from TBL plants. I already have it, so I'm just going to duplicate it, but if you need to, type it. And now the foreman is Volkergall plant number 2. So we don't have to change every field. We can change selected fields. But this safe mode stuff ends up being more a pain than it is a safety catch. When you're doing homework assignments, to not be able to select records using the plant name. Why do I have to go find its ID number? I know the name is Polonium. The ability to not be able to change that is annoying. A couple of ways we can fix it. First thing you can do is go to Edit, Preferences, SQL Queries, Safe Updates. You don't have to follow. I'll show you. For me, I'm doing it on a Mac. Yours should work well too. Edit, what did it say? I forgot already. Edit, Preferences, SQL Queries. So since I'm on a Mac, I might have to go here. There's my Preferences, SQL Queries, Safe Updates. Forbid updates and deletes where no key is specified in the where clause. That's turned on by default. You can turn it off, and for the rest of your life on that machine, you'll be able to do whatever updates you want, including the bad ones. Unless you go back and turn it back on again, of course. It's just an option. So for me, in my office, that's turned off. Because I get real tired of looking up this command. I can never remember it. If you do the edit preferences, you have to shut down the workbench and bring it back up again and make that take effect. And that's too much bother for us right now. So let's enter this command. Set SQL underscore safe underscore updates equal to 0, which is basically false. You can enter that in the workbench itself. Set SQL safe updates equal to false. See if I copied that right. Set SQL safe up. That's not an SQL command, okay? Looks like one, sort of. It's not an SQL command. It's actually a command to the workbench. Because the workbench is what's blocking you here. There is nothing when I run my attendance program, there's nothing when I run my books program on my website that uses my SQL. There's nothing that prevents me from deleting 60 records at once. I don't have to do this on an actual server someplace. We have to do it because we're using the workbench. So when you issue that command, you get a 0 rows affected, but at least it worked. I got a green. And now we should be able to say, let's change it again. Let's update TBL plants. Set the, I forget way too much. Set the plant name. Let's change the plant name. Equal to Stevens Point. Hopefully that'll fit. Where the plant name, now I'm using a field that is not the primary key, equals polonium. With safe updates off, this should work. One row affected, changed it. Green, no complaints. Again, I can do a select everything from plants and see that yes, it worked. This is your basic appearance of an update command. It is very, very rare that you say update table name, set a field equal to something without a where clause. Because without a where clause, you're changing all 300 million records. At Lions Camp, I have one of these because every year they have these annual, did they submit their physical? After the camps are over at the end of the summer, they want to wipe all those out and say nobody has submitted a physical this year. And they start over. So we do an update command to say update the table, set the physical to false, period, sets them all to false. All 3,000 of them. Sometimes it has value to change everything. But most of the time there's going to be a where clause, and the where clause can be as complicated as you want it to be. Or need it to be. Trouble? Okay. Can also update fields, update using fields from multiple tables by joining. Oh, really? Whew. Haven't done that. But here I am joining tables together and I'm updating this value based on this calculation from two different tables. Good to know, not in a homework assignment. Can change the value of a field based on a calculation. So all the skills that you've learned, you can start putting them together here, but these are for your information and mine because I need them occasionally in the other classes, but that's beyond the scope of your assignment. I think most of you will find the update assignment much easier than the multi-tables assignment. Is that a good thing? Yeah, brains are tired. It's almost summer. Okay. We talked briefly about rollback. Rollback allows us to say, okay, all of the changes I've made, roll them back. Meaning undo them all. It's kind of like closing a Word document without saving. From the last rollback, or the last, excuse me, the commit saying, okay, everything's cool, commit, do it. Make it permanent. From the last commit, everything that you do can be rolled back if you have the rollback option turned on. All right, now this is where the workbench makes life a little bit easier. These buttons, I believe, and that one, roll back the current commit. These are commit and rollback buttons, but this is an auto commit button. I know it's kind of hard to see. No, that's not it either. Where's my auto commit button? Are you it? That guy. There we go. Okay, found it. So there's a little blue check mark. There's a little blue X. And then there's a button that's pushed in, if you look carefully, that is the auto commit mode, meaning whenever I say execute a query, like this update, it's permanent. There's no rollback available. If we turn that off, let's turn it off. We now have, notice the rollback button and the, this is the commit button, excuse me, this is the rollback button. Those buttons are available. I'm going to ask you to avoid the buttons because when you do your homework assignment, you actually have to type the commands. Because the acceptable answer on the homework is not, I click the blue check mark. No. So at this point, auto commit is off. So let's go in here and let's just modify this command and change the plant to Stevens Point abbreviated. Unfortunately, Polonia doesn't exist anymore, so we'll do that. So I'm changing the plant name again. But because auto commit is now off, this will make the change. We can see it, but it's not permanent. We have the ability to roll it back. So I'm going to execute that command. It made a change. I'm going to do my display. It made the change. But I can roll back. Got a green check mark on the rollback. Let's do the display again. Stevens Point is back. Whew. Whenever you're doing inserts, updates, particularly updates, you might want to turn that auto commit stuff off. Because if I had done my initial change where I changed the formant of Okergall and all the plants, if rollback, the auto commit had been on, it would have made the change. If I had rollback on, I could have gone and looked and said, oh, oops, I changed every one of them. I could have rolled it back and it would have changed them all again. Let's change the creation date for that plant just to get something new here. Select the established date. No, I don't want to select, I want to update. Update TBL plants. I'm going to wonder about my notes. I made this lovely February trips table and I haven't used it yet. We'll get there. Update TBL plants. I want to set the established date equal to 2015-04-23. I like to put these dates in here. It dates my recordings. Where, and now we can do all kinds of stuff. We could use any one of the fields where I'm going to do the state equals Wisconsin. Now that's kind of risky, right? Because if I had lots of plants, this could change the established date of 3 or 4 different plants. But as it turns out, I'm looking at the data down here, there's only one with Wisconsin in it, so this will only change one. I believe the database administrator purists would tell you, always use a primary key, especially when you're changing data, because then you know you're only changing one. But sometimes it's everybody. For all customers whose value, whose this minus that is overdrawn, balance minus due is overdrawn, do something to them. So this should change it. Looks like it worked. Once again, come up here and display it, and sure enough, there it is. I'm convinced my change hasn't had any side effects. So when I'm done, I can say commit. And I can issue 75 commands here if you want. Insert commands, update commands, obviously select commands. I can do anything I want to. It can work for hours without committing. However, if you make a mistake and you decide to roll back, there's no rollback one command. It's rollback everything since the last commit. So saving and committing here, go ahead and issue that one. Saving and committing here is about like saving in Microsoft Word. Save often, right? So you don't lose your changes. The downside is if you commit often and you commit prematurely, then you can't roll back anymore. So now I'm going up here and I'm going to say select from plants again. It's going to say, yep, it's still today's date. So, oh, no, that was supposed to be 1915. And it was the wrong plant. Okay, let's just roll it back then. There's my rollback command. Said, fine, I did. It's rolled back everything since I issued that commit command, which is nothing. I'm good at that too. You know, when you guys send me emails and then 10 minutes later you send me another email saying, never mind. Oh, I'm good at never mind. That's not a problem. Okay. Doing a rollback when there's nothing to roll back, that's easy. But if we look at what's in the table, even though we've rolled back, it's 2015. Once you commit, the date is permanent. From that commit, from then on, everything we do now for the next half hour will be rollbackable. I think that's a verb, right? We can roll it back if we need to. When you're doing updates, generally a good idea. Questions about rollback and commit? Again, the buttons will do it, but those buttons aren't available when you're writing scripts. You need to know the command, and it's not a real hard one. As far as I know, there's no options on rollback and commit. So there's the magic button. You can also type a command to turn the button off. Seems kind of crazy. Here's the commit. Okay, this we've seen already in Programming Logic Intermediate. If I want to delete rows, simply say delete from the table, and don't you dare stop there, right? So if you say delete from the table without a where clause, that means everybody. Want me to prove it? Let me try it first before you do it. Let me check something here. Doesn't say anything here about rollback doesn't work. And there are certain things that won't roll back. If it's data related, you change the data, you deleted records, that'll work. I believe even an insert will work. Delete from February trips, semicolon, darn safe, updates are off. So it's going to let me do this. 278 row. Wait a minute, what? Darn, forgot my where clause. And I don't even recognize it. So I say insert into TBL Feb trips. I need probably at least a date and a employee name. So emp ID equals 123, 123, 123. That's not how you would do that. Emp ID, trip date, destination, values. I'm just doing an insert command from a long time ago. 123, 123, 123. What date did we go on today? 04. What did I say today was? 23. And we went to Stevens Point. And then I say, okay, show me all those. And it's not emp ID. Insert into February parentheses. Happy now? Thank you. Did that one didn't execute, did it? I haven't run it yet. Come on. There we go. You don't have to follow. I'm just demonstrating bad stuff here, right? So now I say select from TBL Feb trips because I want to see my 279 trips or however many I expect there to be. And there's one. Oh my God, where's the rest of my trips? Well, thank goodness Autocommit is off. So at this point I can say rollback. And it said I did it. And now I can say, please let them all be there again. And how many rows? 278. But my insert is also gone. Okay, because that one would be down here at the bottom with the 999s on the 15. Nope, no 15s. So when you're doing a rollback, every single command, sometimes it saves your life, but depending on your timing, it could also trash some of the good stuff that you did. Normally when we delete, we have a where clause that designates what we want to delete. Typically, it's a single value, but it doesn't have to be. So let's see what my notes say here. An exciting where condition. If there's no condition, it deletes everybody. If the primary key, you need to turn on safe updates. Yeah. What's my example here? From the February trips, delete everybody to Miami. Why? Because we can demonstrate it. So delete from TBL Feb trips where the destination equals Miami. I'm going to clear this down here so I can easily see the changes. How many do I expect? I don't know. There's 300 trips. I wouldn't be surprised if there's 25, 30 of them. 36. Sounds good. Now let's do a little review. Select destination, count star from TBL Feb trips. What did I do wrong? Oh, forgot the group. No Miamis, they're all gone. But I have not committed, so I can still roll back if that's what I wish to do. Questions about delete? Let's plow ahead. All of those changes that we just made are probably the most valuable because they allow you to manipulate the data, delete rows that I no longer need. And again, remember our discussions from the design portion of this class many, many moons ago, okay, that deleting is not generally a good idea. Archiving is generally better, but occasionally, most of our programs, those of you who were watching the show yesterday, there's delete buttons all over the place. So if I enter a record and then realize, wait, that's a mistake, delete them. Or they just called and said, never mind, we can't go during that camp week. Just take me out of your database altogether because next year I'm going to be too old, and so, okay, you're out. Occasionally we need to delete. But generally, not a great idea. Better to archive them. But those are very handy commands because they modify data. Occasionally, we need to modify the table structure. It's a completely different mindset. And the one thing to remember here is rollback does not work when you modify the structure of a table. Rollback only works on data. It rolled back my insert, it rolled back my delete, it rolled back my update. That works. But now with these alter table commands that we're going to be talking about, rollback does not work. And there's a risk here. If I change the size of a varchar field from 30 to 20 accidentally because I meant to make it 200, and I made it 20, I just truncated, and you're going to be in a hurry, so they're going to say, hey, I'm going to truncate. Are you sure? Yep, gone. You just chopped off all of your data that was too long, and there's no rollback. Doesn't work. So be careful with these. Most of the commands we're going to learn use the alter command. We're altering a table that changes the structure of the table. The field types, the field widths, the whatever. You can change primary keys using these commands. Normally you just say alter table, whatever table you want to play with, and then a bunch of clauses, because there's all kinds of things that we can do. We can drop fields, add fields, modify fields, do all kinds of stuff. You can actually blend them together in one alter command. Okay, we need to change this table significantly, add this column to it, drop that column, and change this one from whatever it was before, probably an integer to char5. All in one big command, just put commas in between. So what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to add the airline field to February trips. And it's supposed to be text 15, and that's probably going to be a varchar, right? So we are going to alter a table. TBL Feb trips. And we're going to add a field. To add a field, and I honestly I don't use this often enough that I can't go without looking. I need to add field name type. Okay. Add field name, which is airline, and that's capitalized a little funky in my notes, so we'll do airline. Let's spell it right. And it's going to be a varchar according to my notes there, 15, so we'll go with that. Semicolon. Now, if there was 6 other things we wanted to do, the next one is drop it immediately, so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay. But we can add it. Done. And now when I do a select star, do I have a select star from FebTrips? No. Select star from TBL FebTrips. I got an airline column. Notice they're all null. Now, if I was a database administrator and I had 300 trips because it's a relatively new database and most of our people fly United, I could use an update command and set update airline or update table FebTrip, set airline to United. No where clause, it does them all. And then I could pick the 5, 10 trips where we didn't use United and change it again. But notice they all come up defaulted null. If we want to drop a table, a column, and the only one that's really kind of safe to drop here is the airline column. So we're going to alter TBL or table TBL FebTrips and drop airline. You don't have to tell it anything else. That's the field I want you to get rid of. Remember, there's no rollback here. I can add the field back in again, but I cannot roll back this drop. It is going to wipe out that entire column. If it's got data in it, too bad, so sad. Hope you got a backup of your database. You all backed up your programs lately? Your unit 3s and 4, yeah, some of you, yeah, when you send me, I get the backups with it. But that's risky. Don't forget backups, very important feature. Includes your homework assignments in your programs. This time of year, you don't want hard drives going bad and wiping out all your work. If your backup of your program, how did I get this sidetracked? Because it's going to happen. If your backup's on the same hard drive, nice, you had a backup, but your hard drive went away. Now what? Put them in the cloud, put them somewhere. So if something happens to your laptop, your hard drive, even your own mistakes, you can go get that backup. So drop, go. Select them again, and now the airline field is gone again. The safe updates doesn't affect this either. So you can blow away a whole column and you get no warning whatsoever. Because there's modifying the structure of the table. The safe updates is only for updating, inserting, deleting tables, or record. Not even inserting, excuse me, deleting and updating. I want to modify a field. I want to change the way, here's a change, and there's a change and there's a modify. They're slightly different. I think you can almost use them interchangeably, but if I'm changing a field name without renaming it, I like to use modify. The change command requires you to enter the new field name and its type. So if all I'm doing is changing its type, like I'm doing here, change doesn't make sense because you have to type the field name twice. What's the old field name, what's the new field name, and now what's the type? If you're not renaming it, use modify. If you are renaming it, then you can use change. And what's annoying is if all you want to do is change the name of the field, you still have to duplicate its type. So let's do modify. Notice there's an option here to say change it to not null. I'm curious. So we want to change expenses here. Still have to do, all of these are subclauses of the alter command. You still have to do an alter. Alter table FebTrips. Modify expenses to 5.2. What is it now? 6.2 maybe? Expenses, which is going to be a decimal 5.2. Not null. Now I happen to know that there's some null expenses in there, right? Is it going to let me do that? Probably. Let's clear this again so I can see the results right away. Let me do it. Let's do the select star from, oh, feb trips, maybe it doesn't have any nulls. Let's do that order by expenses, sending. No nulls in there. Okay. So let me do it. But now if I try to insert, one row affected, field expenses down here, I'm pretty sure it says nope, can't be dealt. Doesn't have a definite, doesn't have a what? Can't read it very well. Default value. So did it insert that trip on this date? Once again, let's go up here and let's order by trip date descending. That way it should be at the top if it inserted it. Did not. Yes, it did. Really? Oh. Wow. See why it worked? Put 0 in there for me. That's annoying. Let's try this. Update TBL feb trips. Update table. Set expenses equal to null. Aren't we supposed to say is null? No, that's when you're doing a where clause. If you're assigning null to a field, you can. Okay. He's doing equal, where the trip date equals, doesn't really matter, but we'll do the 14 here, 2014. Is that what I put in there? I must have been. So now I'm going to try to make it null. Shouldn't work, right? Because we up here said make it not null. Let's find out. 0 rows affected. Column expenses cannot be null. But it's interesting what the insert command did. It said can't be null. Okay, make it 0. Ouch. I expected the other one to give me an error as well, saying I'm sorry I couldn't do that because you have a null value for expenses. I'm surprised. So this was a bit of a review of the update command, but here's the alter command that allows me to modify a field. I'm getting tired of typing destination, so I want to rename it city. But in order to do that, I have to use the change command. It's the easiest way to rename a field. But in order to do that, I need to know its type. I need to know its size. What's its size right now? I'd hate to make it too small. So smart move would be to say describe TBL feb trips. And it says that the destination is a varchar 50. Okay. Then do an alter. Table TBL feb trips. Change destination to city varchar 50. Looks like I got a green check mark, so that's a pretty good sign. Let's do a describe. City. And a quick select all, shouldn't make any difference. City, that's the name of the field from now on. But this is also risky. You've got a bunch of scripts out there, saved SQL files that are talking about this field called destination that no longer exists. So changing the size of the field, particularly if you're making it bigger, shouldn't affect any of the other queries. The saved views that we're going to talk about in the next unit shouldn't affect those. If you change the name of a field, though, you could be having a lot of, imagine what that would do to your business class. Your XSD is now out of date. It's got a goofy name on the GUI. You know what I would do? I would change it to city on the GUI, because how's anybody going to know that in the database it's called destination? Who cares? Change it in the GUI. What the user sees is now called cities. In the database, it's still destination. The only person who's going to care is anybody who's actually writing SQL in the database. Shouldn't make a whole lot of difference. What happens when I change the size of one of these fields? So if I change the city to varchar 40, for instance, what happens to your XSD? Automatically updates, right? No, it does not. It is not linked to that extent. Remember when we created the connection, and we're in the wrong class here, but I think it's an appropriate place to talk about it. When we created that connection and we built the XSD, it built those tables for you, those table adapters for you. And the size was 40. How do you rebuild them? Say, update, go look in the database, see if there's anything new. Doesn't do it. Your program thinks that your table size, your destination, your city size is always 50. If you change it to 40, your program does not know that. If you want it to actually change, there's two ways you can do it. You could rebuild the XSD table adapter. That'll do it. Or you can actually go into the properties of the field that you changed and manually change it there as well in the XSD. That's what I normally do. Because rebuilding the XSD means I have to redo all those queries. Yes. So one thing to remember, programmers using Visual Studio, if you change the size of the database field, you need to go into the XSD and change it there as well. It does not happen automatically, unfortunately. Okay, we can drop primary keys. We want to change the keys. For instance, maybe I want to put an auto number field into this table. There isn't one, right? Because right now, back to my describe, there are two primary keys, employee and trip date. That's why when I was inserting records, there was always an employee ID and always a trip date, because it's a dual part key and I can't leave them blank. Well, maybe I don't like that. Can we remove them? Sure. I'm going to alter table TBL feb trips. Drop primary key. There's more than one. That doesn't matter. Then don't put an S on it. That isn't going to help. No keys. What? You can do that? Oh, absolutely. Not a real bright idea, personally. Personal opinion. But you can do it. We now have a table with no primary keys. Of course, once we drop primary keys, we probably want to add a primary key. And there are two ways to do that. You can change an existing field. So this says modify that table, add a primary key, and here's my field names. Could be one, could be multiple. So my notes say put them back again. So I would say alter table, add primary key, employee ID, comma, trip date. And those two would go right back to being primary keys again. But a nice skill to have, because you might have some old database from somebody who didn't like, or maybe you decided to try a table without auto number fields. I want to add an auto number field. Well, then I have to add a field. So we're back to the add clause again. So let's see if we can add an auto number field. Here we go again, alter table feb trips. And this is one of those I would definitely do on a temporary table first, make sure it works. Add trip ID, type integer, primary key, auto increment. Just like the insert command, right? I hope. No complaints here. But notice this is not in my notes. I'm out there winging it again. Go. Screen. Screen. Cool. Cool, look, I got trip IDs, and they got new numbers. Auto-numbered them. I've had a couple of questions, happens every year from extra anal students. I want my auto number fields to match yours. Remember your unit 1, many of you did build tables and you made a mistake and it inserted a record, so then you deleted them and you inserted more and the new record started at number 4. I want them to start at number 1. Here's one way to do it. You delete your primary key, the auto number field, delete it, remove it, and then put it right back in again. It'll renumber them starting at 1. And all your links will be out of whack. Because anything that linked and referred to that ID number, that number's now changed, and now you're linked to different records, or none. Can be done, just not something you do a lot of. The primary key's on the end. We can't have that. Why not? Because Val doesn't like primary keys at the end. They have to be first. It's a rule. They've always been first. It's not a rule. They can be anywhere. If you don't like it, extra credit on the homework assignment, if I remember right. There's a way to make it go to the top. But it doesn't matter. Questions about alter? Yeah.
What happens if you alter the field in a way that truncates your data?
That truncates your data?
Right, like if you alter to that standard 3, 2 instead of 5.
Let's find out. It's an awesome question. So this is Feb trips, right? I could trash it. Who cares? Alter table Feb trips, modify. The name of the field was expenses, decimal 3, 2. Warning, Will Robinson, 300 rows affected. Some are out of range for column expenses. Okay, great. What'd you do to me? Yes, boss, whatever you want, right? Stupid computer does whatever you tell it to, sort of. What happens if I truncate my city and set it to size 5? Chops them all off at 5 characters. Can I roll back? Absolutely not. The data change, yes, it changed the data, but it was caused by a structure change, and you cannot roll back structure changes. They did it. Yay! No. Whatever other changes I made might still be in there or might be back, but that one. So there's risks here. That's why you make copies of tables. You try them and see, uh-oh, what did I do? Oh, I said 3, 2. That's 3 digits to the left and 2 to the right, right? No. You know better now. The 3 means 3 digits total. 1 to the left, 2 to the right. That's what we got. And there was only 5 rows that we salvaged out of it, because it's something down here that 243 rows were affected by that. So, good question. Dangerous stuff. We did a modify, we did a change, we removed primary keys, we know how to put them back. What if you name a table and it's a goofy name? Where am I? Oh, I'm at the end. That's good. Let's keep plugging along here. Want to change the table name? Well, that's easy. You go over here and you right click, and where's alter table? Where is it?
It's right in front of them.
There's alter table. Where's rename? It's not there. But if I go alter table, then I get all these things over here, and what does that do? Not much. I click on one, oh, there, and I can probably change it down here, right? Yeah, that's all well and good. Unless you don't have a workbench with your other one. But most databases today come with some kind of workbench. What you will often see is the word refactor over here. What happens if I click on it and click on it really hard? Can I rename it that way? No. It was real. I have to share the story with you. Why would I even try that? Because it works with Windows file names. It works in Visual Studio. I can rename stuff like that. I wonder, does it work here? Try it. The worst thing that'll happen when nobody's watching is it won't work. And you just say, stupid program. But the story I have to share with you today, I was in a meeting with our HR director, and we were talking about the employee handbook. It's like 100 pages long, and I'm scrolling trying to find stuff in there. And I said, can't you just make links out of these? There's table of contents. Can't you just make links out of these? On my iPad, she touches it and it jumps. They're not designated in any way that they're links, which is what I'm used to in my notes, right? Because all of my stuff at the top, it's blue underline, you click and it jumps. Cool. They weren't designated, but I never even thought to try. That was embarrassing. She touched it and it jumped. Thank you for changing that. Ouch. All right, so we want to change table names, but we're going to do it the hard way or the right way. But honestly, table names, would I really write SQL to do that? Maybe again in a script. Create a table. Call it trips temp. Everything seems to have worked. Delete the original trips, rename the trips temp to trips. So yeah, it might come in handy. So how do we rename it? According to this, we alter table. Table name, rename table name, or rename. Oh, I like that one better. Right? That one makes more sense to me. Rename table, old name, new name. So let's try that. Rename TBL, no table. TBL Feb trips to, logical, yeah, good. To Feb trips, no TBL. Go. No complaints. You're probably going to have to do, yeah, you have to do a refresh over here. And now it's Feb trips. I'm sure the alter works just as well. Notice when I put the original in, I didn't capitalize it properly because it doesn't matter. SQL, MySQL at least, is case insensitive. But if I want it to capitalize like this over here, then I have to capitalize it properly when I rename it. So if you forget to camel case the table, ooh, it's camel case, sort of. When we created them, it wouldn't let us do it, but we can rename them if you really want to have them. So let's try that. I'm curious. Rename table TBL plants to TBL plants. Go. Refresh. Wow. What? How am I to do that one? It's time to meet. I guess it's a stupid programmer. It's the same name. I guess. Otherwise, why wouldn't it change the P here? It gave me what I asked for up there. I think Val's right. It's just it's smart enough to say that it's the same name. Forget it. I'm not changing it. It's just capitalization, and I don't care. I did not expect that to be capitalized that way. We know how to drop a table, complex changes. In my notes, it says if you're doing something really complicated, got to remove 3 fields, change the size of 2 others, Maybe just start over. If it's early and there's not much data, maybe you just start over. But if you got a lot of data, you can't start over. So you have to have these commands. Questions? You have this due tomorrow? Maybe next week. I would recommend next week. Am I in the right class? Yep. Does that sound reasonable? Not hearing any complaints. $25-point assignment. I guarantee you it's not as hard as those last two you did. We are here, 1st of May. That's probably not too bad. There's May 1. That gives us 2 weeks to do the last unit. We're doing well in this class. And then there's programming logic next hour. Oh my God. Okay, or do you want it a week later? This is the last day of class right there, 13th. And that is the last day. Well, it's not the last day of class. That's the last day of class. You all got the email about dropping, right? Expect to see like 2 of you in here next week. No, expect to see all of you back in here next week. But I don't think any of you are doing terrible in here. So that's the last day of class. This is the last day for assignments to be due. I'm going to be nice to you and say, okay, your class ended on the 12th. Well, I'm going to let you turn stuff in. By midnight of the 13th, that's drop dead, don't you dare. Give me a 1201 on that one. It's the end of the semester. It's the end of my grading pile, maybe forever if I'm lucky. So no. All right. 1st or the 8th, what do you want? 1st. Tuesday. Help me remember because I'm going to forget. Lab. We're doing well here. We can afford a lab day for you to work on this with me in the room, or if you're updating multi-tables and you can't figure it out, me in the room, whatever you're doing. So a week from today, we'll start the final unit, which is views and, does it say scripts? It's views and indexes. That's what it is. And that'll be the final unit.